All right. Good morning. Good Monday, everybody. Morning. Geez, I'm just all off whack after being on vacation for 2 weeks with Cheryl. Cheryl, how are you doing after vacation for 2 weeks?
Oh, well, really good.
How's your mindset today?
It is fantastic.
It is Mindset Monday, and we're coming to you live here. If you want to be with us in Zoom, you can join us every single Monday at elevatezoom.com. Just log in, and the password is Elevate. You can join us here live. This is also available on our podcast and available on YouTube. So we're all over the place, Cheryl. But we have a very, very good class planned for you today. Actually, we like to say that our classes are life-changing, and really mastering your mindset is the key to living an amazing life. And today, Cheryl, our topic is identifying triggers, which is so fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. I just like the word trigger.
What is the word trigger, Cheryl, for you?
Well, I do think, isn't that the Lone Ranger's horse? Yes, it isn't. Who is it?
Yes.
It is, maybe not. Oh, Roy Rogers' horse. Thank you, Caroline. I knew it was somebody's horse. And I love horses, so I love the whole idea, but I think I've learned more. Maybe I can say that more from this week's mindset class than any other.
Yeah, it's that good. So let's get started with this amazing lesson. So Cheryl, triggers hijack your brain to go into a good direction or a bad direction.
Yeah.
So it's I know a lot of us think of triggers as being something negative all the time, but obviously there's positive triggers too. And there's things that can happen in your life that triggered something that made you go in a good direction and changed your whole life around. So triggers can work both ways for sure. But the key to this whole Monday mindset this week is this one sentence. And that's the quality of your life is the quality of the emotions you consistently feel.
Yeah.
So true, isn't it, Cheryl?
Well, yeah, just think about that. Like, if you just think about what are the emotions that you feel most of the time, consistently, what are those emotions? And you can tell just by being aware of those emotions that you feel, how your life is going. And that I don't even know if there's a more true statement than that. I mean, that is just like absolutely true.
It is. And once I learned this or heard this statement from Tony Robbins, I was thinking about it and I'm like, wow. And there's really only three things in life you can control. So you can control your thoughts, you can control your emotions, you can control your actions. So once I found out that you can control your emotions, my whole life changed. Like, wow, why would I want to feel that way then? That's stupid. And truly, if you go through life upset or pissed off or whatever emotion you're feeling throughout life, that's how your life's going to go. So it's super important to be aware of different things, and mainly triggers are what cause you to start feeling one way or the other. So a trigger happens, and then a thought comes about, and then that causes an emotion. So it's 1, 2, 3: trigger, thought, emotion. Boom, boom, boom. And like Cheryl, we just got back from the beach. So that's a trigger. You get to the beach, trigger goes off. What's the thought that you think when you get to the beach?
Yeah, well, I think beautiful, amazing, peaceful, inspiring. I think all those things.
Yeah, and what's the feeling you get from those thoughts?
Happy. I'm super happy when I'm at the beach. And I feel very peaceful.
Yeah. I feel very grateful, that I'm there. So that's an example of a positive trigger. Now let me give you a negative trigger. So a lot of us remember 9/11 when that happened. So my thought was, how dare someone do this to us? This is ridiculous. And the emotion it caused was anger. I was very angry that this happened. So we have to reframe things. And what we're going to do today is just offer the possibility that there's a different meaning to things, that you could have a different thought when these triggers happen that will send you in a better direction. Because if you go into a better direction, you're going to have better emotions. And if you have better emotions, you're going to have a better life. So let's really focus on how can I keep heading in the right direction and not go into these negative emotions? And really, Cheryl, what I love about this lesson we're teaching today is that negative emotions are nothing more than signals back to us that something's happening.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking earlier, Cheryl, when I mentioned having a fever. Having a fever is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's a super great defense mechanism the body has to kill off a bad virus or something bad that's happening in your body. So
it's like it's the signal that you need to change something, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something that you need to change when that trigger hits, or even not to ever have the trigger again. Really, I think
when you feel that emotion,
if it's a bad trigger, right? If it's a bad trigger, then I think that it's changing the whole idea of the way that trigger affects you.
Absolutely. So when you're feeling a negative emotion, you should be aware of that emotion. So first of all, it's about awareness. We always talk about awareness here on Mondays. And then ask what caused that emotion, what thought triggered that emotion to happen. And then we're going to work through some things to help you change those thoughts so you could have better emotions. So let's jump right in this, Cheryl. We're going to talk about there's 10 action signals, okay, that there's, so tag, quote unquote, negative emotions that we feel that, again, are nothing more than action signals back to us, telling us that something's going wrong and that something needs to be changed. So let's start with the first one, Cheryl, which is discomfort. So what does discomfort mean?
Discomfort, these are emotions that have great intensity and are annoying.
Yeah, very, this is just super
so
annoying.
It's kind of like, it's when you're out of your comfort zone. I think that's kind of the way I look at it. Like you're uncomfortable in a situation that you've been put in, right? That's the way that I look at it.
So what would be an example, a trigger, Cheryl, of a situation like?
Well, I think a great one is doing something that you've never done before, right? If you do something that you've never done before, you will feel uncomfortable, right? And I think that's why a lot of times we don't want to do things that we've never done before, and a lot of times it's a lot of us, when I very first started, building my own business, having my own business, that was hard for me. I was very uncomfortable in that space. And so just becoming aware that I'm uncomfortable, then that helps in going to the next part, which is the thought. What thought is this bringing up? So what are the thoughts that are brought up when you are triggered?
Yep.
Right.
When you're feeling discomfort. Yep.
Yeah. And the thought is, well, this is boring, or this is stressful, or, it could even be, I don't even want to try that. I'm uncomfortable because I might be embarrassed, or it might not go the way that I want it to go. Right. So all of those things, all of those thoughts happen. And I think something that's interesting, Paul, is that they happen very quickly. Like within a second, it's already happening. And sometimes it's hard to stop it, but becoming aware, and then going into, and then I think it's super important to become aware. The trigger happens, you become aware, your thought process is super quick. So you have to stop it. You have to be aware. You have to stop it quickly and go right into a brand new thought. So, and I think it's awesome today that we're going to talk about some new thoughts that we could have, in these different actions, or these different triggers that happen. So the new thought could be, this is a chance for me to do something brand new and grow. And
we all know, Cheryl, that your number one need is variety, and and growth is your two top needs. So that is it's a whole new thought to have. So what Cheryl is referring to is you have different rules in your mind. And when she said instantaneously, they're all preset. So when this happens, I'm going to feel this. So for instance, when someone dies, I'm going to be sad. Just a rule you have. Doesn't mean you can't change the rule. It's just it's a certain rule a lot of people have. So when I win the lottery, I'm going to be super excited. So there's just rules, and there's hundreds, if not thousands of rules we all have in our minds right now and we have to catch them because some of these rules are bad. We want to always be aware that we can change the rules at any time if they're not serving us. And what I mean by serving us is, are they taking us towards a good emotion or towards a bad emotion? So we want to always pick meanings and rules that will take us in the right direction. It'll take us towards positive feelings. So the second one, Cheryl, is my favorite, which is fear. So we talk about this all the time. Fear stops everything. If you don't have something you want in your life, it's because of fear. So this emotion brings a level of concern, intense worry, anxiety, fright, or even terror to your life. You know, we all feel this fear at different times. So like one of the ways to feel fear is playing tennis against someone who's really good. Like it's just, oh gosh, what do I get myself into? And I'd love to see in the chat here, what is a trigger for you that makes you feel the emotion of fear? So maybe it's calling someone new or doing something you've never done before, or what are some of the things when you really look at your life that's causing you to feel fear? That's a great answer.
I think it's interesting, Paul. It could be in any area of your life. Yeah. That's what I think is really interesting, is it's not just, you know, because I think a lot of times I only think about, you know, in my business instead of other times or in other ways. Like playing tennis is not part of my business, but that is a way that that I used to feel fear, is if I would have to go into a situation where I was playing with a group of people that were way better than me. And I realized, you know, there's a couple of reasons why. I don't like to see disgust on someone else's face that I'm playing with. I don't. And that is exactly what was happening, right? Oh, and I felt like walking into the room, oh no, she really had to come today. That's the feeling I got from these other people that were so much better than me. And, you know, it was very hard for me not to turn around and walk out. But I'm like, hey, listen, I'm here. This is what we're doing. And I got invited to come. So this is what we're going to do. And then I just, you know, but to have that trigger was very hard for me to not go to negative thoughts. And let me tell you, the second you go to negative thoughts, I think at any time, you're already scared. Now you're going to start thinking negatively. Okay, that would be 2 strikes and you don't need that, right? There's no way that I could even perform with the negative thoughts or the negative thoughts that I had. So I had to control the negative thoughts and I had to get in there and, you know, do everything that I could do. I had to try 1,000 times harder than everybody else there. And that's the way I did it.
Mm-hmm. Someone else mentioned here in the chat that public speaking was a great fear of theirs.
Yeah.
So everything you mentioned, Cheryl, and public speaking and anything else you could write down that brings you fear, there's only one thing that is telling you. It's a signal back to you. When you feel fear, the only thing the only signal back to you is that you're not prepared, which I thought was fascinating. I'm like, that can't be right. But the more I thought about it, it's absolutely correct, because if you're afraid of someone you're playing against, it just means you haven't practiced enough. You know, and now, Cheryl, are you afraid to go on the court against a good player?
No,
not
I do it all the time.
How did the fear disappear? Because she got better prepared. She
spent
because 2 hours a day practicing it, and now the fear is gone because she's prepared.
Right.
But whenever you feel fear, it means you are unprepared, which is why I'm so freaking obsessed with preparation. Preparation is everything, because when I'm prepared, I can kill it. There's nothing I can't do when I'm prepared.
And I think prepared, yes. And I think also another thing that I think is really important here is practice. So because you will have fear whenever you try something new, you're going to have fear, whether it's calling someone, whether it's, you know, anything in life, you will have fear if it's the first time you're trying it, right? And so, but the more practice, the better you will get, meaning the more prepared you will be. Yes. So I think that's super important.
Absolutely. So the new thought, couple things. First of all, you could be well prepared for something, but still feel fear because it's just an old feeling and an association you have in your brain. So you need to stop. And your new thought should be, wait a second, my cookie jar is filled with wins. There's no reason for me to feel this fear right now. So you change that feeling of fear into the feeling of being unstoppable, because you just realize that's a ridiculous feeling for you to have at this moment, because I am 1,000% prepared for this. Or the other thing is, I need to become better prepared. And that emotion is always going to trigger the emotion of growth inside of me. So one of my top emotions that I want to feel is growth and progress. So that makes me feel fantastic. So it's having a plan on how you can become a better player or a better speaker or a better whatever business person, and executing that. So that's all that means. And you can overcome fear very easily just by becoming more prepared. So the third one, Cheryl, is hurt. So it's a negative emotion that a lot of us feel. And what is hurt?
So it's an emotion that dominates relationships. And it usually is generated by a sense of loss, some kind of loss.
Okay, so everyone think about you're hurt. What happened? Something in your life triggered, something happened, and then you feel this emotion of hurt. So what's an example, Cheryl, of something that could trigger hurt?
Well, maybe someone that you love didn't call you on your birthday.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah,
I always feel hurt when that happens.
Well, right. And the thing that I think is interesting about this is you had that expectation, right? So you have an expectation that has not been met,
right?
Which I think we need to think about that just for one quick second, because think about so much pain and anger and all of these things happen, I think, because of expectations that we have that are not met. And Paul, something that's crazy to me is I honestly believe that I don't have any expectations for people, but I found out that I do. I didn't even realize it. So becoming aware that you have those expectations and just, and then just knowing how to deal with them. So that was the thought, is you have an expectation that's not been met. And what we really are trying to do here today is give you some ideas for a new thought that you could have. So instead of that thought, your new thought could be that you're going to trade your expectation that you have for appreciation and then gratitude. So you can just be, someone didn't call you on your birthday. Well, first of all, the reason why you feel bad is because you had this expectation, and now and that they didn't meet that expectation for you. But really, it's just a story you're telling yourself, because what if something happened to them, right? What if they couldn't call you on your birthday? Or what if they had so much going on in their life? So many things happen. And then we have, this is how it should have been. And we have this, I always think of this glorious, calling me on my birthday, and things like that. And then it doesn't happen. So the new thought is just that you need to trade that expectation just for the appreciation of that friendship that you have with that person.
Yeah.
Right. And I think gratitude follows closely.
Yeah. This was a huge turning point in my life. Like, I had massive expectations for every single person on the planet. I mean, I expect everyone to do this and that and that. And that was driving me crazy. It was driving me insane. Not even making me hurt, but making me angry. And I have all kinds of these bad emotions.
Do you go straight to anger, Paul?
I do. I go right to grab the 9mm or the M16, and that's just the way we're going to roll here. But when I was able to give up all expectations, like the only thing I expect is from myself. I literally don't expect anything from anyone. And I just have turned to appreciation. What is it that I appreciate about that person? So I'm changing my focus, and that just leads to gratitude. And gratitude is one of my top emotions that I want to feel. So it's been a huge life-changing experience for myself. Giving up these expectations of other people. You should literally never expect anything from anyone. And when you can get to that point in life where you exchange those expectations for appreciation, your entire life will change. Promise. All right, Cheryl, another fan favorite, anger, which is what you may have felt in me a moment ago there. So what is this emotion telling us, Cheryl? What is this emotion about?
So this emotion, first of all, it includes being irritated, angry, resentful, furious, or enraged. So all of the above is where anger comes into it. But just think about when, like, something that's triggered you to get angry. So it might be that someone, you've set an appointment with someone and they just didn't show up to the appointment. They just dissed you. Right. And so, that goes straight to, the thought that you could have is an important rule or standard that you hold for yourself in your life has been violated. So they violate, like, think about that. Would you ever just not show up to something? Right. And if you're like, no, I would never do that. Well, that's why you're so angry. And that's why that triggers you, because somebody else didn't show up when they said that they would. Right. Absolutely. And then the new thought is just that this is a learning experience and a time for growth. But another thing too that we were talking about a little bit earlier is that you really need to, maybe you'll do something a little bit different. So the growth would come in, well, now I won't ever go to another meeting until I, text or call the person and make sure that they're going to show up.
Yep.
Right. So that would be the growth in the.
So it's being aware of these rules in our minds that if someone doesn't show up for a meeting, I'm going to be angry. And changing that to, like you said, always confirming that a person's going to be there. So the real key is to change your perception so you don't feel angry. And there's a lot of things that set me off on this one. So it's super important. I've become very aware of that. Doing that as a trigger for me causes me to think this thought and then feel this negative emotion of anger. And again, quality of our lives is the quality of the emotions we feel. So we definitely want to do a reframe and ask, what else could this mean? And then use that so that we can move towards a positive emotion. The next one, Cheryl, is frustration, which is a big one for a lot of people. And this emotion comes from feeling surrounded by roadblocks. We feel that we put in the effort, but we're not receiving the rewards that we want to have in our lives or the results we want to have in our lives. So like a trigger could be like, I'm not seeing my business growing like I wish it was growing. Okay, so that would be, I'm just frustrated with that, So the thought could be, you believe you could be doing better than you currently are. That's the thought that is causing you to feel this emotion of frustration. So a new thought, which we always do on Tuesday, Cheryl, when we do our weekly review class, is always start with the positive. Look for the wins. When you're feeling frustrated that you're not making progress, it's usually because you're focused on what's wrong and not what's right. There's so many things to celebrate usually that we miss those things. Our brains are wired to go look for the problems. What's going wrong. But we have to consistently consciously ask ourselves, what are the wins? And then when I ask myself that, man, I got a list 2 miles long of wins I've had. And that maybe this isn't the sales volume or the whatever thing in your life, you're not losing the weight at the rate you want, but all these other things have improved tremendously. And, taking that all into consideration, that I am making progress. And one of the big things for me also is that I feel frustrated when I start paying attention to reality. So you can either focus on reality or your imagination, and your brain does not know the difference between reality and your imagination. So whenever I'm feeling frustrated, it means I'm focusing on reality, the results I'm getting right now, as opposed to focusing on the results I want to have. So when I focus on those things, I feel fantastic. But my biggest triggers for feeling frustration is when one or more of my 6 needs are not being met. So I don't feel like I'm growing. I don't feel like I'm contributing. I don't feel like I have love and connection in my life. I don't feel like I'm significant. I don't feel like there's any variety in my life. I don't feel certain about anything. All those things cause me to feel this emotion of frustration. So we want to change that and really focus on, again, the results you want to have as if you've already had them, as opposed to what the current reality is. And you can change the way you feel about things instantaneously. And you'll get those things so fast once you start focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want or what you're getting now.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I love the whole idea that your brain or your mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. I love that.
Yeah, super interesting. What's the next one, Cheryl?
Yeah. So the next one is disappointment. So this emotion is all about feeling let down or that you will miss out on something forever. It's also about expecting more than you receive.
There's that word expecting again, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's all over. Expecting is everywhere. Okay, so the trigger is you thought someone was going to do something, but they didn't do it. So that's one. Okay, so you could be disappointed in someone else. Or the other trigger that you could have is that you're disappointed in yourself, which for me, that's a much bigger one than being disappointed in someone else, I think. So the thought, so you go straight to, you had an expectation or a standard that was not met, right? So someone disappointed you because you had an expectation, there it is again, that was not met, right? Mm-hmm. Or a standard that you have that was not met. And then the new thought that you could have is that you can exchange again your expectations for appreciation and gratitude.
Yeah. Or so, you could also have another new thought that that this was just a learning experience again. I love going to that, just calling bad things that happen in my life, oh, that's just another learning experience, because I love learning and it always makes me feel like I'm growing. So it's just flipping things around and having a different thought associated to that emotion. Super interesting. Yeah. The next one I find is fascinating, which is guilt. So this emotion is about regret and remorse. So the trigger is saying I was going to do something and not doing it, or doing something that was below your standards or values or your beliefs. So there's a lot of things that can trigger that, obviously. So the thought that we're having is that I violated one of my highest values or one of my core beliefs. So a couple new thoughts we could have here. Number one is obviously, I'll never do that again, because you firmly believe that that's a value of yours, that you firmly believe that that's a core belief of yours that you're absolutely certain about. So you just say, well, I'll never do that again, chalk it up as a learning experience, and then you'll feel like you're growing, which is an emotion we all want to feel. Another thought is that I need to reevaluate my values and beliefs. So people say, I feel guilty for building a business. I feel guilty for buying this thing. I feel guilty for doing this or that or that. And there's really no basis for feeling that way. So my values, which I've had to reevaluate many times recently, is I'm absolutely certain that happiness is my number one value. Now, I reserve the right to change it at any moment, but I was saying for the longest time that freedom was my number one value. That's what I really want. Well, why do I want freedom? Because it makes me happy. Or being healthy.
Mine is still freedom.
But what does freedom make you feel?
Happy. So they're interchangeable is what I'm getting at.
Cheryl likes to have a lot of number one values.
I do. I have 3.
But when I really, really thought about it, all of our values or all of the things we want in life is to feel happy. That's the end all be all, is we want to be happy. So I'm absolutely certain that happiness is now my number one value. This is what I value. So I asked myself, what makes you happy, Paul? And when you list those things down that make you happy, those things, you can't be guilty, feel guilty about them, because it's meeting my highest value, which is freedom or feeling happy or being healthy. So I can't feel guilty about working out this morning. It's ridiculous. My number one top value is health. So how can you feel guilty about spending the time doing that? How can you feel guilty about doing this or that when it made you happy? So it's so important to sit down and make a list of things that make you happy. And well, first of all, decide that that's your number one value. and then decide what are the things that make you happy. And because I guarantee you there's a whole bunch of people listening to this right now that are feeling guilty about things that you have no right to be feeling guilty about. There's no, I mean, let's just take building your business, Cheryl. You want to build a business. Now, well, I feel guilty because I'm taking away from my kids, taking time away from my kids. Well, number one, all the time you spend building your business, you're providing a better future for your children than you've had.
Correct.
And second of all, I don't think there's any message in the world you can send to children better than showing them how to set a goal, to build your own thing, that you don't need to have a job, but I can do it on my own. And if you have a dream, you can make it happen. I mean, all those messages are critical for a child to see a parent do.
Yes.
So to feel guilty for these things is, in my opinion, completely ridiculous.
Right.
And again, is it something that makes you happy? So if building this business makes you happy, that is something you should absolutely do. If it doesn't, don't do it. It's a pretty simple rule I have in my life.
Yep. Let me before we go on to the next one, I just wanted to mention something real quick that's that I found very helpful. So as soon as I decide, or as soon as I have a trigger, and I decide, like right off, I look at the 10, I decide which one it is. And then I like to compare too. So is it really, like the way that we did it, and we did this earlier, Paul and I did this together. So, okay, so I'm feeling frustration. Okay, great. Is it frustration or is it fear? And then I'd have to decide between those two. Okay, great. Is it anger or frustration? So you can really get to the very bottom of which trigger it is that's happening. Because I think that's super important to know exactly which one it is. So go back and forth. Is it this one or this one? And usually we just took two, but my main one, but then once my main one changed, then we would go on to two more just to make sure that that's what it was. And we did change it, didn't we? We changed it a couple of times.
Yeah. For both of us.
Of which, which trigger it was that we were experiencing. Okay. So the next one is inadequacy. So this is about feeling unworthy. We feel like we can't do something that we should be able to do. And I think that this unworthiness can come up in a million different ways. So just think about like a time that you have felt unworthy, right? And so the trigger is doing something you have never done before, like owning your own business. Right. Of course, you are going to feel inadequate. You've never done it before. Right. And so, of course you are. And then the thought that you're going to have, of course, is I'm not good enough. I'm not,
we hear that all the time, Cheryl.
Yeah. I'm not good enough to do that. Right. And then, but the new thought is, and I love this because the new thought is it's true. I don't have the level of skill necessary for the task, right? Let's just say of owning your own business, right? And I am trying to accomplish that, but I need more information. I need more understanding, strategies, confidence, and resources, right? So you need all of those new things, or you need all of those as a new thought. And one thing that I love is that a new thought is that, hey, listen, I'm very resourceful.
Yeah.
I am resourceful. So I know where I can find all those things. I know where I can get that training. I know the things that I need to do. I know where to find, whatever the plan, the map, whatever it is. I know where to find those things. And then you can also, when I was thinking about this one, knowing that I'm, just saying that I was resourceful and that I could find these different things really made me feel strong. So I felt like I was strong and I could build my own business. I could do something that seems impossible, right, for a moment. And also I can grow, I can get better, and I can do hard things. Those are all thoughts that we can have. New thoughts or thoughts instead of this, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cheryl, you are the best person in the whole world to point to for this emotion, because you, out of anyone I've known in my entire life, never look at, I don't have the resources or I'm not good enough, because there's no one I know that is more resourceful than you are. And if there's one skill to have in life, it's be resourceful.
Right.
So Cheryl may not have it right now, but she knows where to go look for it. And from that, she feels extremely strong because she knows that who cares if I don't have that resource right now? I'll find it. And so many times you've just put it out there to the universe that I'm going to be resourceful. I need a teacher for this, or I need a coach for this or that, or whatever you needed. And I used to be blown away all the time, but it's happened so many times already that I'm not even moved anymore by it, because it happens all the time to you. And you just have got into this massive skill of being resourceful, which is, because everyone thinks it's about resources. Like, I don't have the resources. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I'm not good enough.
I think it's fine if it is about the resources, if you have any. But certainly when I started out, I didn't have any resources.
Right.
And so that's when being resourceful, came in so handy. And then I think I just continued it on. But I love that. I love this whole idea of, you don't have to have everything, but you have to know where to find it. And you have to know the people who have what you need. That to me is like, it's all of those things.
Yeah. So you got to find a coach, you got to find a mentor, or you got to find a business partner. And one of the jokes that Cheryl and I have when we were out at a bunch of dinners this past couple of weeks, we'd be talking to new people, and I would tell them that Cheryl's the wow and I'm the how. And everyone always laughs at that. But it's true.
That's true.
We need to have, whatever you don't have, you need to be resourceful and find someone who does have that.
Absolutely.
So Cheryl brings a lot of wow to things in life, as you can see.
Well, thank goodness you know the how.
And I know the how. Yeah. So
we're all be wowed.
Yeah. We just feel a lot of wow going on. So that's awesome. So that feeling of inadequacy should go away instantaneously. Hopefully we fix that one emotion for you for sure. Cheryl, another fan favorite of myself, when I love feeling, is overwhelm. And overload. That's one of my favorite emotions to feel. So this emotion is about grief, depression, helplessness, that, there is no empowering meaning for something that has happened. So my trigger, and Cheryl's like, Paul, really? Why would you feel overwhelmed? Like, I never ever feel that way. And I'm like, well, the trigger for me is seeing my long to-do list. And Cheryl's like, well, that's simple. I don't have a to-do list. So how could I possibly feel overwhelmed? I literally had like 232 things to do today. I mean, I made this list out that was just, and I do it to myself.
If I had that, I would never get out of bed.
Right.
I'd be like, nope. Out of bed. No, sir.
Yeah. So all that saying, the message back to me when I'm starting to feel is, Paul, and this was even asked to me, who makes up your schedule? Well, I do. Who makes your to-do list? I do. So it's not like someone's forcing me to do any of this stuff. I'm doing it all on my own. I'm causing my own. But it was an emotional home that I go to. And it was Tony Robbins that pointed this out to me, that this is where I like to live. Even though it's a bad emotion, that was my home. I felt best in overwhelm, which sounds ridiculous. And it was ridiculous. But what that's telling you, the message in that, when you're feeling overwhelmed, is that you're not focusing on what's most important. And I have to get, and this was a big lesson of being in the Marines. They purposely give you more things to do in a day than there's time for. So they force you to prioritize things. And this is the biggest thing. We know that the old 80-20 rule, that 20% of the things we do are going to give us 80% of the return. So you got to identify what those 20% of things are in your life that's going to give you the biggest return. And I'm doing things that are, I'm doing the 80% of things that are giving me the 20% return, which is ridiculous. I'm not spending time thinking about what's my highest priority. What do I need to do first? What is the real result that I want to achieve here? And when I do that, when I RPM things, I'm unstoppable. I don't feel overwhelmed at all. And I feel like I'm accomplishing things because I have a specific result I'm trying to get today, instead of a to-do list that's 17 miles long. So RPM is my solution to this, and it's completely changed my life by getting me out of this home of overwhelm and into a place of power. Last but not least, Cheryl.
Oh, loneliness. So this emotion, and I think everybody can kind of understand this, especially over the past year and a half or so, right? It's been a whole new way of life. And I think loneliness really comes out. But this emotion is all about feeling alone or apart or separated from others. And we thought that a trigger could be someone leaving your team. Mm-hmm. And I know this has happened to me a number of times. So someone leaving your team, and the thought is, you know what, I'm all alone. You know, they're gone, and now here I am without this person that's made a difference in my life. And then I think it's so important to get quickly in all of these things to the new thought. So the new thought for this one is, I just need to connect with some more new people, right? And I need to start meeting new people. I need to, however that is, however that looks, like for you, but you've got to start meeting new people. And another one too is that I could, we have, a community. Join the community, the Facebook community. Join some kind of a group where you are with other people, right? And so just getting into that new thought and that new action, especially for this one quickly, is super important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's an emotion a lot of people feel is loneliness, and there's an absolute way to overcome that, just by meeting new people every day, like Cheryl said. So Cheryl, so just to reiterate, we're the quality of your life is the quality of your emotions that you consistently feel. So let's turn the page, Cheryl, and talk about what emotions do you want to feel?
Yes.
So we know that the negative ones are just signals back to us that something's going, something needs to be changed. That's all it means. But Cheryl, let's talk about the quality of our life, the quality of the emotions we feel. What are those emotions you want to feel? So what are some of the emotions that you love feeling, Cheryl?
I love to feel gratitude, happiness, joy, peace, love, connection, progress, and contribution.
Yeah, those are all great ones. 8 great ones right there. To elevate, I don't know how we accidentally came up with 8, but so we'd love to hear from all of you though. Is there another emotion that you want to feel besides those 8? We'd love to hear from you on that. And just type in the chat there if there's another emotion that you want to feel. Satisfaction that I did my best. Appreciated. Confidence, a good one, Jill.
Yeah.
Accomplished, that means you're making progress, you're growing. Okay, great. Well, so a couple of homework assignments. Number 1 was to make a list of things that make you happy. Number 2 is to make a list of emotions that you want to feel, and happiness should be pretty high on the list. Fulfillment, successful.
I do like free too. We can't forget free.
Feeling free. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so, it's so important to do all these exercises because when you have a value and an emotion that don't meet each other, then we feel confused inside or upset. So because Cheryl's number 1 value is freedom, what do you think a great emotion would be? Feeling free. So you want these things to line up. You want your emotions and your values to line up so that you're meeting your values and that you're feeling the emotions you want to feel. So by making up the value list, you can easily make up the emotions you want to feel.
Yeah.
They're 100% connected, values and emotions. Great. So first of all, we want to make the list of the happiness list. We want to make the list of emotions we want to feel. And the next list we want to make, Cheryl, is triggers, to know what triggers things. So some of my favorite triggers in life is CNN's number one by far. There's nothing that triggers me into outrage more than watching 5 minutes of CNN. So I just don't do it. I know it's a trigger. I know I want to start killing people when I watch CNN, so I don't watch it.
Well, I think anymore, Paul, it's any news.
Really, you're right. You know, I mean, I just had this conversation with Henry yesterday. Like, what is even news for? Like, it's never going to do anything to grow me or make me better or anything. So, and that's my number one need. So, watching news, any kind of news, is stupid. It's just there's no reason for it whatsoever. Right. But maybe you get a bad text or a phone call. This was an interesting one, Cheryl, we were talking about, is when you see people happy on social media when you're not happy. Like, look at the end, you just start like hating on those people because they're like, now don't get me wrong, they're posting something that makes them look happy, but not telling you the 1,000 things that are going wrong in their life at this moment. But hey, hats off to them for focusing on the positive, the one thing that is going right. So that can also be a trigger. When you're arguing with someone, that can be a trigger. Contention can be a trigger. Doing something against your belief system, unmet expectations can be a trigger. And the one big thing for me, as I mentioned before, is one or more of my 6 needs are not being met, which sends me into a negative emotion. So what is it for you? We want to hear from all of you. You could hit unmute, and if you raise your hand, excuse me, if you want to make a comment about anything we've said today or want to add to any of the triggers, positive or negative, that really affect your life. Because again, it's all about awareness on this call, and to become aware of what are the triggers that make me feel great and put me in the right direction, and what are the triggers that send me down south. I mean, down in that tailspin.
All
so let's
right,
go to Natalie.
Natalie.
Whoop. There we go. So courageous is one of the words I put in, so we're going to be courageous here. Knowing there's a lot of things that I myself need to continue to do. So I want to be satisfied, but I'm never satisfied that I'm not done working, right? I'm always going to get better. But I think one of my biggest ones is spending as much time as I am on the mindset, on my messaging, even in my imaging and the perception that I'm giving off, get extremely frustrated where I work really hard to be put together. Others have an expectation of how I'm supposed to respond to them, the when you talk to them, whatever you need out of them, but then will not allow that to be the same thing that they give me that same grace. Like, I'm supposed to do what they need to, but say I need more time, they get all wigged out because, well, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, don't read, don't. The hardest thing is to not pick up on their energy of not reciprocating that. Well, if I'm going to expect something of you, there needs to be a little bit of that allowance of, on the other side too. So I think that's my biggest one, is to not jump into their energy of, wanting to battle them back on, well, you expect that of me. Why can't you expect that of me? You know what I mean? Don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So that's
when
my
that
biggest
happens,
one.
so when this happens, when someone has an expectation of me or that don't met, I feel blank. So what is the emotion you feel when that happens?
Almost, it's kind of a borderline between enraged and powerless. Because I know if I react to it, it's going to be it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to undo everything I came prepared to do.
Yeah, it's anger for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just always, I work so hard to get myself right, and yet I'm not. Yeah. Anyway.
Is it really anger or is it hurt?
Maybe I think a hurt would be a good one. At the anger might be my reaction to it. That it's like,
right.
Come on, you expect something of me. Why can't I expect something of you? Not that you do anything for reciprocation, but that there should be that understanding that, I'm going to respect you, care for you, et cetera, working whatever works best for you, not pushing your buttons and triggers. But why is that not something they would then expect to see and do for me as well? So probably hurt would be a better way to put that.
Excellent. You see how Cheryl did that? She
Yep.
said that might be the initial reaction, but what else could it be?
What
So
a good
you really
coach
want
you
to
are.
do what Cheryl just did and always ask, could it be something else? Because it usually is.
Yeah, it is. But that's awesome, Natalie. And then what are, you've got to think also, like, what are some thoughts that you can think instead of going straight to feeling, so hurt? And this was a hard one for me because I kept hearing you say expectations. And that's a really hard one for me because I do have expectations. And what I heard you say is you're feeling a certain way because they expect you to do something and you're doing it. And now you expect them to do something and they're not doing it. So, so you have to just think like, what can be another thought that you can have about that, right? And I know, so when Paul and I were talking about this earlier, he said, Cheryl, you just can't have any expectations. And I said, listen, I was not going to say that. I don't want to have that as the woman. No, but it's super important not to have those expectations. And then maybe too, are you feeling like you may not have any boundaries maybe? Right? I mean, they're expecting you to do things and you're like, oh, okay. And you're going to do it and do it and do it. And maybe those boundaries or something may need to come up a little bit for you so that you don't feel like, because also I heard a little bit in there, maybe that you're feeling like you're being taken advantage of.
Discomfort. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All those things. Excellent. Excellent. We just got to, but the key is to have a new thought, Natalie, right? And again, I can't emphasize enough to get rid of those expectations and start appreciating people, and your whole life will be so much better because your quality of your emotions will be so much better.
But I also want to make sure that you have those boundaries, because I think that that's where we can get into overwhelm and frustration if we don't have those boundaries for ourselves, right? So for ourselves.
Super. Jill, you had your hand up for a hot second. Maybe she got intimidated by. Anybody else have any comments before we call it a day here?
Nobody else wants to share anything. Share their triggers. No, but
so what does that mean, Cheryl? It means that we're such great coaches that we've covered everything and answered everyone's question before they even got a chance to ask it.
And then we said that. Now here's Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hi. Hey, so I actually originally did not raise my hand. It's this new Zoom function that I guess if you're around talking with your hands, it raises it automatically.
No.
Oh, yeah. So I originally did not raise my hand, but I did the second time. I just wanted to say that the thing that spoke to me the most, well, the whole call was great, but the preparation, that you feel fear when you're unprepared. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And that is a huge thing to remember, that's what you have to do so you feel more in control, is to be more prepared. So thank you. That was huge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. All right, Caroline.
Hi, I will go super fast. Just that autopilot that you return to when you feel those triggers, that's that stinking default status, and get it out of there.
Those rules, yeah.
It's just stop it. And I love that your mind does not know the difference between reality and imagination. So as long as you get that reframe in there and spend more time imagining that you already have the results that you want, it's just gonna elevate the whole decision-making process that happens when you feel these emotions. And I just love how much control that you actually have once you become aware, and then you take it to that next level.
Outstanding. Absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for that. That is awesome. The whole key to it.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, Barbara.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just want to say thank you. You're fantastic teachers. I got a lot out of it. I've already had a lot of it. I went through all this because I'm with John Maxwell as well, in his training, and of course with with preaching and reading the Bible and everything. And I know that my trigger is when someone is negative. When I'm talking positive, trying to bring a person in a place and they go negative on me, that used to drive me crazy. But now I know that's a trigger, and all I have to do is say, that's their way of thinking, let them talk it out and don't get it in your spirit. Move on.
So that's a new thought you have.
Yes.
That's outstanding.
That is
Before
so cool.
before I used to stuff it, and then it used to bother me, and it stayed with me and stayed with me and stayed. But I don't do that anymore. I just say, let them go with it. That's their thought. That's the way they want to live. That's it. There's nothing I can do about it. And then I move on.
Outstanding. That's so fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more, Paul. Okay, two more. Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. I totally second what Barbara said. I mean, I have like this spirit of just wanting to please everybody before this and, make everybody happy, growing up, taking care of, my siblings. But I've so learned to just let go of the outcomes. I still have that empathic spirit, but I just, I let go of the outcomes. So thank you guys so much. You're the best teachers in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, we have time for one more. Hello, Becca.
Hello. So many of these things spoke to me as far as the hurt and fear and disappointment and, of course, overwhelm. I think that's my biggest one. But one thing that I found is when I let that overwhelm get me, that keeps me from being able to move forward. So it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's picking up the phone and making phone calls, whether it's doing, lives on Facebook, whether it's doing one of my shows, having that frustration has to do with it, because there's times where you think, oh, I'm not quite ready. Well, more than you think you do. It's just a matter of putting yourself out there, forgetting what everybody else thinks, because they're probably not thinking it anyways, and just doing it.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience, that when I just set all of that aside, take all those negative things that are going on up here out of the picture, everything, the momentum just starts rolling. And
yeah.
I owe it to Mindset Mondays and the health coach certification course and the two of you for helping me realize that I was my biggest obstacle and I no longer am. So thank you.
Outstanding.
Yay, Becca. That's so awesome.
So just real quick, Becca, one book that really helped me in my life was The One Thing. And the one thing, I'll give you the whole book in one sentence, is what's the one thing you could do that would make all other things easier or not even necessary to do anymore? And so the one thing is, for me, is leadership, creating leaders. So the main thing is to keep the main thing, the main thing. It's understanding what the main thing is. So for me, it's Elevate Your Leadership, which we do every Thursday. It's my favorite call of the week to do, my favorite podcast to do. I love learning about it, and I love creating leaders. That is the one thing I know that if I focus on that one thing, everything else in my life gets better. So I encourage everyone to think about what is the main thing in your life? What is the main thing you want? Because when you can focus on that, then all those other things go away and get taken care of in another way. So great job, everyone. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for all your wisdom today. And this has been a fun class to teach, and just a life-changing experience to understand that all of these negative emotions are nothing more than signals back to ourselves that something needs to change, that we need to reframe things. So What a great lesson.
I loved it. Thank you so much, Paul. That was wonderful and awesome. And thank you. I loved hearing from each of you that spoke up today. That really helps me so much. So thank you.
Yeah, so good. Okay, right. Great job. We will see you on Thursday at Elevate Your Leadership. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.